let's discuss about task dependencies and network diagrams. So if we're talking of task dependencies, we need to understand their definition. So these ones, they describe the relationship between task and defines their order of completion. So it does two things. Number one, it describes the relationship between the task. Another one, it defines their order of completion. Right. So that is what it does. Let's look at examples, right? Let us look at those particular examples, right? Okay, on that particular example, the example that we can have is this one. When you are trying to paint a wall, which is task B, it depends on task A, which is building a wall. So for you to paint a building, that means first you are supposed to have a building first. So that is their dependency that is there between painting and having a building. Okay, let's look at the importance of task dependencies. The importance is that it helps to organize tasks for smoother workflow. So by the end of the day, there is that smoother workflow because things, they are organized. You know that I'm going to do this after finishing that. Okay, let's look at types of task dependencies. So on that one, we have got the first one. It is finish to start. That is also known as FS. So on that one, task B starts after task A finishes. An example on that one is where you are trying to edit something. So for you to start editing, you first need to complete writing. So once for task B to begin, which is editing, you need to first complete task A, which is writing. Okay, the second one, it is start to start. So these are tasks which start at the same time. So task A and task B, they start at the same time. So as a project manager, you need to be aware of that particular thing. Okay, for example, filming and recording, they start at the same time. So let's say you find that people, okay, for example, the project of teaching online as I'm doing right now, you find out that the filming of the slides, they occur concurrently with the audio production of the slides. Okay, another one, it is finish to finish, FF, right? So task B finishes when task A also finishes. So these are tasks which they finish at the same time. For example, proofreading finishes after writing is completed. So for example, you are writing a book. For you to say, I've finished writing this particular book, that means proofreading is also completed. Once proofreading is still in progress, you cannot say, I've finished writing this particular book. Another one, it is start to finish, right? So task B finishes after task A starts. Right, so on an example on that one is where you have got a guard, so he's guarding somewhere else. So for the shift for that particular guard to come to an end, it is when the shift for the next guard starts, right? So that's why we are saying task B finishes when task A starts. So for this particular guard to say, I'm free, I need to go, it is when his shift, it's when the shift for another guard has now come in what? In effect. So that is what we need to understand on that one. Okay, let's move forward. Let's talk about network diagrams. So what is this particular thing? So it is a visual tool showing task sequence and dependencies. Let's look at some of the structures in a network diagram. So number one, we have got nodes. So these, they represent tasks, right? So they can be in form of nodes can be in form of circles or let's say rectangular diagrams. Then you have got next, you have got arrows. So those arrows, they denote dependencies, how those tasks are depending on each other. Okay, so for example, in software development, task A, that is UI design. Then you have got task B, that is backend development. Then you've got task C, that is integration. So you find that there is those tasks are, it's like the first one, task A, it is coming. Then from there you go to task B. From there you go to task C. So those arrows, they are showing us how those tasks are depending on each other. Okay, let's talk about benefits of network diagram. So it has got clear visualization because it is something that has been drawn, right? It has been written properly. So there is that clear visualization. Another one, there is improved scheduling. So you are able to schedule your things properly because of these network diagrams. Another one, it is another thing that we need to understand on that on network diagram is resource allocation. Okay, right. Let's talk about steps to create a network diagram. Number one, you need to list tasks and dependencies. So you need to list everything that is there, all the tasks and their relation. How are those tasks relating to each other? Right. Um, from there, you need to draw notes for tasks. So you can either use boxes or circles. So you draw those particular boxes. And from there, you need to draw to add arrows or to draw the arrows which are going to show the dependencies. So you are going to connect. So those arrows will be used to connect the nodes, right? So those arrows will be used to connect the boxes. Right. So you need, from there, you need to identify the critical path. So that particular critical path is the sequence that determine the shortest project duration. So that is what we need to understand on that one. Okay. So on that one, we have got an example of a network diagram. So as I already said, that in a network diagram, you can have some circles. So here you can see we have got a circle here. Then you have got some square boxes right there. Right. So that is one thing that we need to understand on that one. Right. Okay. So on this particular example of a network diagram, we can see that a work is starting here, right? So there is something that is a project that is starting here. Then that particular project has got a task what? Task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5. Then it comes to an end. So we are saying that tasks are shown in the boxes, right? So the tasks are shown in the boxes. So from there we can, if we look here, we can say that arrows, they show dependencies. So those arrows, they are showing how task A is depending on task B. So for example, task 1 starts, then that task 1, after that task 1, then that's when you go to task 3, right? If you can look at task 2, you find that after task 2, that is when you go to task number 3, right? So on this particular example, we can also look at task on this one here, on this particular statement. It is saying that task 3 cannot begin until both task 1 and 2 have been completed. So task 3, this particular task, right? That particular task, at all costs, that particular task cannot begin unless this task and that task are completed. Because you can see after completion of task 1, that is when it is coming to task 3. After completion of task 2, that is when you are coming to task number 3. Right. So that is what we need to understand. Okay. Then the last one, we are here we can see that the research statement that is saying that there is both a start and end of the project. So that is how a project lands. There is no project that has got no lifespan. Every project has got a lifespan. It has got somewhere where it is starting and it has got somewhere where it is ending. Right. Okay, let's talk about best practices for managing dependencies. Right, so we can use tools. For example, we can use automate tracking with tools like Tireno or Asana. So those are tools, computer tools, which can be used when you are trying to manage those particular dependencies. Another one, it is regularly updating. So you should try to revise the dependencies as the project is progressing. Another one, you need to try to avoid overlap, right? So you should minimize overlapping tasks to reduce bottleneck. So try to avoid tasks to be overlapping. Another one, you should try to, there should be clarity in terms of communication. So you should, each team member should understand the relationship that is there within the task. So every team member should understand the relationship that is there in the tasks. Right. So that is it on dependencies, task dependencies, as well as the network diagrams.